I hesitated to start this one because I was having negative thoughts and I couldn't figure out what I wanted to say exactly and how I wanted to say it, how I wanted to go about building this particular episode of Mr. Benja's ADD Experience Live. This is a thoughtful Thursday. I don't have the image up to say so, but yes, indeed it is. So I'm going to put a comment here for everybody. If you have any ideas or any thoughts on becoming immune to negative energy, that's what we're going into today. That's what we're going to be discussing. And hopefully we'll be able to make some headway in this whole negative thing we've got going on in society right now. Because somehow, I don't know, some people are feeling it, some people aren't. Some people are feeling much better about life, and some people are feeling much worse. And it's something I kind of wanted to address and get into just a little bit because we're in some funny times right now. Let's see. Let me ask what's an interesting question I can ask that I can get some responses for this thoughtful Thursday? How do you combat negativity? There we go. That's a question I'll ask. How do you, and I actually want to get your comments on this, so throw them in the comments. Throw a reply online if you see it. But how do you combat negative energy? Maybe combat's not the right word, but I'm using it now. All right. I will post that. And I want to thank you for your patience in getting started here. Thank you for following along with all of these. Let's take a little bit of a second just to relax, settle yourself, think about things. Breathe in, breathe out, slowly and steadily. Quick breath in through the nose, slow exhale out through the mouth. Quick breath in through the nose, slow breath out through the mouth. I actually started doing that for myself before I started doing it as a part of this podcast. I don't do it every time, obviously, but I started doing that for myself just to get my mind right and working on my mindset. And that's something I've been doing for quite a while. For many, many years of my life, I've just been battling with negative energy in a way that I'm not sure is helpful. And I'm not the only one I know. But I think I picked up some things along the way that'll help me move forward. Anyway, becoming immune to negative energy. If this begins to meander, let me know. I'll get back on topic and I can focus on whatever part you want. But as I said, Thoughtful Thursday, I'm a little bit thoughtful and just kind of considering what's going on. To start this off, I want to say that a couple days ago, I had a definition of sorts for positivity and negativity. And this is kind of a continuation of that, where you're working to create something positive, then you should expect something negative. And what do I mean by that? The very nature of you going in a certain direction is going to mean that you're going to come against opposing forces. If you think about Newton's third law of motion, it states, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So the more activity you engage in, the more forces against that activity will show up. And that's just the nature of things. I think a lot of us have this idea that things are just going to be positive and things are just going to work out and things are just going to be happiness and roses. And we get very discouraged when life plays the way it plays, when life acts out, when life does what life does. And you can also think about the law of entropy in terms of negative and positive energy. And law of entropy states that things in a given system, when left alone, tend to go to disorder as opposed to order. And you can see that if you have a deck of cards. When you open them up, they're all nice, neat, and ordered, starting from the small joker, big joker, two of hearts, all the way up to ace of spades. It's in order. Once you start shuffling them, you're not going to get it back to where it was. That's just the way entropy works. Things in a given system tend to disorder as opposed to order. And combine that with Newton's third law I mentioned before. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Then you have a realization that takes place. That anything that we do in a positive, any direction, but a positive direction in specific, in particular, is going to have pushback. And that's okay. Coming to grips with that was something that I had to accept, because your energy, when it's in use, energy in use causes movement of some type. It causes an action, it forces the world to react. That's what energy in use does. It forces the world around you to react in some way. Now, the title of this one is Becoming Immune to Negative Energy. How do you do that? How do you build upon your positive energy and not become affected too much by the negative energy? That's probably what you're thinking about. I'm just guessing here. Because we have all these things that we want to do, and then we get frustrated and upset, and then we go back to just being lower energy and not doing as much as we want to do, not trying to change things as much, not trying to rock the boat as much, not trying to build or create as much. Just because something feels wrong or there's negative forces that are going against us. And when I say negative forces that are going against us, I'm not necessarily talking about someone coming out and trying to just forcibly stop you and say, I don't like what you're doing, although that may happen. It's very likely to happen in many scenarios, but just by the nature of things. If you want to fly, if for the Wright brothers were trying to fly, all the energy in engineering and physics up to that point was all about pretty much staying on the ground. Their energy was about trying to get off the ground. So just by the nature of the engineering technology, the knowledge at the time, the social pressures, financial pressures, etc., it was hard to get a flying machine actually created. There was negative energy. They were held back by the lack of whatever they were trying to create. And that's how it's going to be for a lot of things that you end up creating. I mean, I spent several years, 13 years in the video game industry, creating, building, conceptualizing, testing, marketing, selling video games. To make these things happen, I had to actually start realizing how many things can go wrong when you try to build something. And I think this is something that a lot of people don't get, because a lot of people aren't in positions to build things from scratch. They may not be accustomed to the amount of things that can go wrong. So they're not used to it. There are a lot of people who haven't had to construct anything, and they assume everything just quote unquote works. And maybe this is a result of the microwave generation, that they used to call it, or the instant gratification generation, where you just hit a button or you just call for something and it shows up and it kind of just works. Maybe this is a pushback against it. This negativity that you're feeling is a little bit of that realization that, yeah, the energy you put out is going to need to overcome the forces of entropy, and is going to need to overcome that equal and opposite reaction. But in game development, you very quickly learn that when you start building something, it's not going to work the first time. There are going to be bugs, there are going to be problems, and whatever you thought was going on in your head is not what's going to actually happen in the actual product as you build it. You just start to become better at understanding, oh, this isn't going to be perfect. There are going to be flaws. There are going to be things I didn't see. I'm going to get responses I didn't expect. And there are a lot of headaches. So how does this is the way I looked at it from the game development side. But if you're in a different type of field, maybe you don't have the same ways of looking at the world. And I'm sure that there are things that these other professions may have that I don't see. So I'm not knocking it at all. But like carpentry, tax preps, lawyers, teachers, bus drivers, anybody in a service industry, you kind of start to expect things to work a certain way. And even in the tech industry, people expect things to work a certain way. But the world's going to be the world, and we can't really necessarily expect it just to work. The world's going to do what the world's going to do. And a lot of times, that negative energy that's keeping us from going positive is something we fight against, something we try to overcome it. We try to ignore it, pretend it doesn't exist, avoid it, counteract it with more negativity. We try to out positive it. And it's not really about that. Because it's just an energy force that exists, it coexists with positivity. And I'm not saying you need to tolerate negativity or cope with it or just, I use the term accept very carefully because I don't mean you should tolerate it or cope with it, but understand that negativity does in fact exist. So back to the main point. How do you become immune to it? Like any vaccine, you take a weakened form of a virus, of a certain ailment. You take a weakened form of it and you inject it into yourself. Thankfully, or not so thankfully, but in this world, you don't have to inject yourself with any negativity. It will come inject itself into you on its own. It'll find a way into you. Your job is to stop, embrace that negativity, look at it, flip it around, study it, find out where this pain is coming from. And you're not going to get it all right the first time, so don't think you'll do that. But just consider what's happening when that negativity strikes you. And then think of a way that you can move forward in a positive direction. That's essentially what it comes down to. Over time, as you become better with dealing with negativity and these forces that are pushing against you, you just become better at it. You can never become fully immune. Or at least I don't think you can. I don't know that I would want to. Because as we grow, you should start to grow into different arenas and different areas and different ways of trying things. And that's inevitably going to lead you to new challenges and new interactions and new negative forces because you're doing different things in a positive manner. So it's kind of this never-ending situation, right? But hopefully you're okay with it. The problems you have now aren't going to be the problems you have in 5 years. The problems you had 5 years ago aren't the problems you have now. I don't know, maybe something that happened back then wouldn't have made you upset and makes you upset now. And that's just kind of how it works, though. So there's two parts here. The acceptance or the understanding of the negative energy, and then the consideration and the deciding what to do about it. And this is a hard one for a lot of people because they don't see the relationship between the positive and the negative. They only see the negative as something they should eradicate, something out there that they should fix. And that's generally not your work. Your work is to try to figure out how to deal with your positive energy and get that to a point where it's just doing the best that it can do in a given situation. And whenever you build your positive energy up in a certain way, that you do the best that you can do in any given situation, then the world will have to react. Because once again, that's what energy is about. Energy in use affects the world, changes the world in some way. And hopefully you're doing it in a positive direction and not damaging yourself or creating more negative situations for you to deal with. So obviously, positivity is relative, right? You're not going to always be thinking that this thing is good in all respects or this thing is bad in all respects. Things tend to change depending on situations. And people tend to change based on situations. Your abilities are going to change over time. Your environment's going to change over time. Your perceptions are going to change. Your understandings are going to change. All these things are going to end up changing over time. Your work is still to have that positive energy move you forward. I know some people have the example I keep coming back to is road rage, or somebody leaving a nasty comment online. Sometimes they just hit you and they get you, right? You've got to find a way, now that that negative energy has hit you, what do you do with that? If you just sit there and roll around in the negative energy like a pile of leaves rolling around it, you're just going to get dirty. You've got to really take a look at that situation and start thinking, with this negativity in mind, not putting it out of my head, not ignoring it, not letting it go, not burying it in the sand, that you may need to do that just to get to a calm place. So getting to a calm place or getting to a more level-headed place is better than just blowing up. I'm not saying hold on to it and blow up, but if you can get to a place where you approach your energy, you approach the negative energy that's bubbling up inside you, and you can start to analyze it. You can start to truly feel it out. You can start to ask questions like, you know what? Why did that make me mad? Not why did they do something? Not why is the world like this? Not how come? Not every time I do this, they always... Those are excuses. Why are you having this negative effect? And if you're having this negative effect inside you, what can you do to push back against it? What can you do to build from there? So obviously, if you walk outside and it starts raining, you might start thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, the world's against me, it's raining. Another part is you could say, you know what? I could get a new raincoat. Haven't worn a raincoat in a while, but maybe I can fold one up and put it in the backseat of my car and it'll be there for me. Maybe I could do that. Or, hey, maybe I can get an umbrella. Keep it in the back of my car. I keep one in the house, one in the car. Yeah, I can get 2 umbrellas because I live in LA. I don't have any umbrellas right now. Maybe I'll just get 2 just in case this happens. And these are thoughts that start moving you in a positive direction. As opposed to just sitting still or just getting angry, you start to have to change your thoughts. You have to start to shift your perspective. You don't even necessarily have to do anything. You don't have to go buy anything. You may just think to yourself, all right, rain is cool. That may be enough to get you going and keeping you moving forward. And it's hard. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. These aren't things that are easy. These aren't things that happen overnight. These aren't things that it will just magically happen just because you want it to. It's actual practice that you need to do. You need to get in the habit of trying to figure out what to do with your negativity. And yes, I said your negativity because it's not out there. Whatever person in the news isn't your problem. How did Naval say it? Naval Ravikant? I think he said the news media's job is to amplify everyone's problems and make them yours for the sake of attention and money. Something along those lines, he said. That the goal of media is to make everyone's problems yours for the sake of attention. So why are we internalizing these things? I don't think we're ever, because of that said media or propaganda or just people trying to control you or the way you feel and the way you act in certain ways, I think that's where a lot of our current training on negativity comes from. But can you get to a point where you just see something negative happening, you're like, all right, that's not what I wanted. This is a frustrating experience. Here's what I'm going to do, or here's how I'm going to think about this, or here's how I'm going to approach this in the future. It's about embracing it. It's about embracing negativity, which sounds very strange, but negativity is actually a very strong and powerful force in your life. It's innate to most of us. Children learn how to say no before anything else. They learn how to reject. They learn how to cry. They learn how to spit things out, push things away, turn their heads away, close their eyes if you're too close to them, or they just start flailing their hands at you to push you away. These are all negative responses, and they're pretty good at it. I mean, they grab what they want and they take what they want. But as far as communication goes, yeah, negativity comes pretty easily to most people, and that's fine, because that's how we narrow down what we want our positivity to be. And you also notice in the news, negativity much faster than positivity. Just the same way as lies travel faster than the truth for whatever reason. Or if it is true, somebody thinks it's negative, and therefore it moves very quickly. So this is just the way we're wired, and we don't have to get into the reasons why people communicate like this or why energy travels this way. Negative energy travels fast and positive energy travels slower. But it's good to remember that the direction that we want, the answers that we want, they're all in the positive direction. So as long as we keep doing good things, keep working towards fortifying, building, expanding, living that abundantly positive life, as long as we keep working on that, things will pay off. Just by the nature of things, they have to. You may not get the result you want exactly. I don't want to put that out there. But a lot of times feeding into the negative is just going to create more negativity. You have to have a way to move towards the positive. And as I said, speaking of negative and positive energies, I really struggled on doing this one today. I didn't know what I was going to talk about, didn't know how I wanted to frame this. And I realized that sitting around jostling back and forth and confusing myself on what I should talk about, I realized that was more of a negative force than me actually sitting down and getting started recording. So that's my lesson personally for this one, is to get in there and do it. You can fix it later. There are going to be problems just like with any game development situation or any development situation. We'll fix the bugs later. We'll keep going, build something bigger, better, stronger. Check me out on YouTube and all the podcast channels. Be sure to subscribe to Mr. Benja's ADD Experience. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Going to be here most nights. I want to start doing more seasonal, more current event type of podcasts and talks. And as always, anything you send me, I'm definitely willing to put it on the air. We'll talk about it and we'll go from there. Thank you very much. This is Mr. Benja's ADD Experience with a Thoughtful Thursday. Have a good one.